Hey everyone. Okay, so it's time for another update on the episodes we're working on so that you can submit your questions. We've got one on influencer creep, or why it feels like everyone on the internet is becoming some kind of influencer. So, any question that you can think of about that. Another episode is about all things audiobooks with everyone's favorite narrator, Julia Whalen. We're also working on another episode about weird English words. So, why is a word, why is dog? Why is enough? Why is there a GH at the end? Any word that you're like, where does this come from? That's a question. And then we've got a show on the complicated industry of IVF with the creators of the investigative podcast IVF Disrupted. And as always, we want your questions for the Ask Ann Anything segment and your ideas for future episodes. You can submit all of them at tinyurl.com/culturestudypod. Thank you so much for your help. You know we couldn't make this show without you. This is the Culture Study Podcast, and I'm Anne Helen Peterson.
Hi, I'm Jen Hewitt. I'm a surface designer, a textile artist, a printmaker, and an author.
Jen, your official biography says that you're either on your second or your fifth career. Can you explain that a little bit?
Correct. So I started out in education. I graduated from college in 96 when there were no jobs really anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I worked in a nonprofit organization for a few years and worked in schools. And left that in 2000 to start my own business. And everybody I knew was going to work for startups because it was the .com era.
Yep.
And I actually left it and started a stationery business, which was the exact opposite
Totally.
of what everyone else was doing.
That's so great. That is so
I
great.
know. I'm always, I have all these friends who made a lot of money at Facebook and Google. And that was not me. But I kind of wound my way back into education, working for a for-profit online educational organization. We did corporate clients. And when everything imploded in 2008, I went back to being an artist. So I was an artist and an illustrator for my stationery business, and then an artist again for whatever it is I'm doing right now, which is a mishmash of things.
What's your history with textile arts? Because that's how I primarily know you, as a textile artist.
Yeah, I'm actually not completely self-taught. I think all artists are pretty much self-taught. But I was doing all these craft fairs selling prints that I had screen printed on paper. And I would do these craft fairs and people would come up to me and be like, I love this print, but I don't know what to do with it. I don't know where I'd put it. So if you printed it on, say, a dish towel, I would totally buy it. And usually I hate unsolicited advice, but that was actually really good advice. And so I went to...
That's totally the sort of thing that a customer would say, and you'd be like, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for
but I learned to screen print at this community printmaking center that's still there. It's really fantastic.
Amazing.
And I went to, it was a drop-in, you come in with a project and they walk you through it. And I was going all the time because it was 2009 and I was unemployed.
Yeah.
And I asked the workshop coordinator, can you show me how to print on fabric? And he did. And that's how I learned. And so it was the early days of Etsy and blogging, and things would go viral really easily. And so whatever I was doing on fabric really caught on. And at the same time, I was just learning how to sew.
Yeah.
So I had always been really interested in fabric. I loved fabric. I wasn't great at sewing. But I started sewing my own clothes, and I was like, I could probably print my own fabric, which I can do, and I did do, but it was so much work.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I have never actually sold any fabric I've printed by hand. I only make things with it, or I teach people how to do it because it's so labor intensive.
Oh, that's so interesting.
But really doing my own projects for myself is what led to doing commercial projects for big companies.
Yeah.
Because I had this proof of concept. I'd created a thing, I'd shown its applications, people clearly wanted it. I wouldn't sell it to them. And so there was a demand in the market at the time.
Yeah. And how do you think about your own business today? Because most freelancers I know really think of themselves as a collection of different income streams. right?
Yep.
Like there's just a lot of things that they're doing so that they're not relying on just one income stream because that's precarious in this environment. So, yeah, how do you think about it?
Yeah, I am I a freelancer? I'm not sure I'm a freelancer. I
Right?
think like I am partly because what I do primarily is licensing. And so
Mhm.
licensing is different from freelance in that freelance you're actually providing a service that's specific to that client.
Yeah.
Whereas with licensing, I am essentially renting out a piece of art to a company for a specific reason, for a specific amount of time, for a specific amount of money.
Yeah.
And so they're coming to me, and I've already created a body of work for the most part, like 95% of the time.
Hmm.
And so that's part of my income stream. So am I a freelancer? Maybe.
Right. This is, and we're going to talk about this in the episode. Like, what do you call yourself? Like, am
Yeah.
I a small business owner when I employ myself? Like,
Hmm.
does that make you a small business owner? Where's the line between freelance and non-freelance? If we're all self-incorporated, like, are we all both in some way? If we're paying freelance taxes,
Right.
that's a whole nother thing too. So, yeah, it's really
Yeah.
complicated.
I'm paying my Social Security tax and
Yeah,
I'm paying what my employer would pay in Social
exactly.
Security tax. So, yeah, I am I consider myself a small business. Partly also because I design and manufacture and sell my own products. And so I've got that arm of the business as
Yep.
well. And I'm importing and I'm dealing with all kinds of things that I think can be scary to people if they've never done them before. But once you do it once, it's like, oh, this is
Yeah.
super simple. Or
Yeah.
if it's not simple, like you get through it,
Yeah,
you
yeah. It's not
know?
any more complex than like learning how to use, I don't know, Excel or something like that. You just need
Right,
to learn it. Um,
exactly.
One of the reasons we wanted to have you on the show is because you do talk in this sort of meta way about the difficulties of owning a small business and just how fraught it is. So, why do you like talking about being a small business owner and like just how all of the dynamics work?
I think a lot of times, if you're used to having a full time job working for someone else, or if you don't work, you think that in some ways this is easy
Uh huh.
and that it is not interconnected to other things and that it's a really good way to make money. And so I want folks to understand that this is actually not easy at all, that there are a lot of moving parts, that in many ways, I think as a small business owner and as an artist, quite honestly, I am the canary in the coal mine. I'm more subject to the whims of changes in the government
Yep.
and in policy than people who have the cushion of a large corporation or even a smaller corporation buffering them
Yeah.
against some of those changes. And so I like everything from tariffs to healthcare to social security, like all of that stuff really impacts me in this way that I viscerally feel that I don't think people feel right away when they have a regular job.
Yeah.
And I also want people to understand like art is a business. It is something that I do for fun. Quite honestly, sometimes it's not fun, but also because it is a career path. It has
Yeah.
its ups and downs, and it should be treated seriously. Because if there's one thing that we all consume, it actually is art and creativity, even if we don't realize that that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I think the numbers show that more and more people are trying to figure out a path forward that doesn't involve being tethered to a larger corporation, but at the same time they're trying to figure out how to insulate themselves from some of those changes, like you said, being the canary in the coal mine. I'm thinking about health insurance changes right now, and if you
Right.
are right, if you don't have a partner who is employed by a corporation that is providing health insurance, like how that changes what is and isn't possible. Um, it's a lot,
It's a
but
lot. Yeah.
it is a lot. We got some really good questions. I'm really excited for them. The first one comes from Erica.
I've been running a small freelance business doing mostly graphic design and marketing support for small business and nonprofit clients for years now. And I'm really struggling with how hard it is to make a decent living. We already know that MLMs are predatory, and the classic gig economy apps are too. Is freelancing as a design professional just another hustle culture sham now? Promising fulfillment and independence, while basically no one will pay you enough for your expertise plus the overhead of running your own shop? requiring you to do business development on increasingly enshittified social media platforms with less and less reach every month. Especially in the age of software, which democratizes design, in quotes, and now so-called AI design tools, it seems like any potential this avenue had to be legitimately workable is gone. Is it just me?
I don't think
I
it's
mean,
just her.
no, it's
No.
not just you. Oh my gosh. I mean, that completely encapsulates my journey over the
Right.
last 15 years since I started doing this seriously.
Yeah.
2010 is really when I started treating this as a business. So, first things first, every few years, some new design tool comes out, and everybody's like, oh God, this is democratizing design. Where are the designers going to go? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
We're still here. So, like, I went onto Canva and I can't figure it out to save my life, and I can
Uh-huh.
do fairly complex things in Photoshop. So, I have no clue. But all the other stuff, like, absolutely, yes, we're exploiting ourselves in
Yeah.
so many ways. And I think what ends up happening is we're not valuing our own labor because no one values our own labor,
Yeah.
but they also don't value their labor. And so, like, we are in a society, a country where nobody's labor is valued. And it's only getting worse, right? Um,
Yeah.
I think about the work. So I have a part-time consulting job where I do social media for a clothing company. And I spent 6.5 hours filming, editing, doing voiceover for a 2.5 minute video,
Yeah.
for a 2.5 minute reel.
Yeah.
And I think about how that labor is largely invisible to
Yes.
everybody who consumes it, right?
Yes.
And it's being presented on a platform where people are just scrolling through all day long, like myself included. And so, and it's right, it's one of those enshittified platforms where Instagram used to be great.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Like,
Yeah.
I have a career because, and I have a following because I started on Instagram in like 2012,
Yep.
right? And I had all these projects and I got a lot of followers. And if anybody wants to find out how to build an Instagram following, it's like, well, you go back to 2010 and you start, posting in 2012.
Right.
Um, I don't, but yeah, it's not just you. And I don't know what to say except that in some ways, social media is not a good place to do business development.
Yep.
It's maybe a good place to start, but you've got to move on from there.
Yep.
And that a lot of the work that I have gotten for freelance work, like when I've done illustration, has really come from personal relationships that I've had with people in the industry. But it can be really hard, like when you don't have those connections in the industry, to get connections in the industry,
Right.
right?
No, I know. Well, and this also makes me think of this like really difficult tension between artists like shouldn't talk about money and shouldn't like conceive of themselves as business people. I get this all the time with writing, right? Like with journalists, it's like if you think of yourself as a business, then it somehow lessens the quality of the writing. But also, you have to live. And I also see it in the Culture Study newsletter in the comments a lot. There's a really great pushback, I think, on like sometimes people will post a link to some earrings or to a quilt or something, and they'll be like, it's so expensive, but like it's worth it. And I'll see comments that say, yeah, it is expensive, but that's what the labor is worth. Right. And so there is, I think, this understanding that like stuff shouldn't be as cheap as we've come to understand it. And that someone charging what that labor is worth does not mean that like they hate poor people. Do you know what like there's that
Right.
there's like a flattening sometimes in the discourse of like if something's expensive then you hate poor people.
But poor people also need income, right?
Right,
So,
right.
right, like if you can't devalue my labor and then say that me devaluing my labor somehow elevates people who actually should be paid more for whatever it
Right.
is that they're doing.
Right,
Like,
right, right. Totally.
right?
The logic just breaks, but I think we're also very used to online like trying to make these caveats about like this is exquisite, but also I know it's expensive. And you're like, it's expensive for a reason. It's not expensive because it's a brand, per se. It's expensive because of the labor that someone put into making that thing.
Right. Well, and also, like, I'm 50 years old, and I remember when I was a teenager that sweaters were like $60 and $70,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that you got maybe 2 or 3 sweaters a year. I went to a Catholic school, so I had a uniform, so my mom was more willing to spend that money.
Yeah.
But like I go to the stores now and sweaters are $60 and $70. And so everything else has gotten expensive,
Yeah.
right? Inflation has really impacted everything else, but it hasn't impacted clothing.
Wow. I wonder what's happening there.
Uh-huh. Again, labor.
Do you feel like you sometimes want to show your process more in order to show like the work itself?
I used to show my process a lot more,
Yeah.
and it turned into, in many ways, folks wanting me to provide them with like step by step explanations of what I
Uh,
was doing, which then
yep.
was even more labor.
Yep.
So I offered an online class, and I would teach people how to do block printing, which was really popular. And I also would do like in person classes to teach the process again because I wanted them to understand.
Yeah.
But it is a lot of work. Again, 6 hours for a 2.5 minute video.
Mm-hmm.
That was an instructional video for my consulting client. Like, also showing my process requires a lot of time that, quite honestly, I'm not really getting paid for.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right? like, like I think because I've been a consultant I was a consultant for so long. I supported myself as an HR consultant when
Yeah.
early in the days of my business, and I did that for 8 years, I want to say,
Wow.
where I was working with like consulting CFOs and COOs who thought nothing of billing hourly or going over and charging overages. And I was like, okay, well, this is actually a really good education. Like, my
Yeah.
time is actually worth something.
Yeah.
And I was either consulting or making art. And if you wanted me to do something that wasn't one of those two things, like I would be giving up either my consulting income, which was really high,
Mm-hmm.
or my art making time, which was really precious to me. And
Yeah.
so when I looked at it that way, it was like, yeah, I don't want to do this.
I think that a lot of people have only, if you haven't worked an hourly job where you have been encouraged to work to the hour, like if you're getting paid for 38 hours, you do not work over 38 hours. You work to contract and nothing over that. When you're paid by salary, especially when you're working in so-called passion jobs, like somewhere in academia or as a teacher, you're so used to working so much above and beyond what the contract hours are that you normalize doing all of this extra work. And it used to be that you were paid enough to maybe like it was a good job. Like being a professor was a good job. And so, yes, of course, you would review someone else's manuscript on your own time, right? Or you would write a book for no payment because that was part of the academic labor. But as the job has become a worse and worse job, the extra labor expectations are still there. And then when you port that over into something outside of academia, outside of being a junior high teacher, whatever it is, a nonprofit worker, then you still are like, oh, but I should be doing all of this labor for free.
Right.
It's really hard to let go of that.
It is. And I think, like, I was raised, I have working class parents in many ways. My mom is an immigrant. My dad worked in factories and then managed factories before all of that went away. And he actually ended up working at UCLA as a photographer for like 20 years when all
Wow.
of those jobs went away. Yeah, he
Cool.
reinvented himself. He had been a photographer on the weekends to pay for our Catholic school. But I was always taught to like go above and beyond
Yep.
to move forward. And then you find out that that actually was just like, that was a lie.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's self-exploitation. That doesn't make you a better
Yep.
person or a more moral person or a better artist. It just makes you
Right.
burn out.
Mm-hmm.
Today's episode is sponsored by Aura Frames. Aura Frames is the perfect gift. You know who it's the perfect gift for? It's for anyone who is always saying like, "Oh, I saw that picture that you posted on Instagram. Can you send it to me?" AKA parents. And it's such an easy way for them to have access to the photo, not just to like store it, but also to have it in their homes. You just text the photo to a number and then it shows up in their Aura frame. Okay. It's ridiculous. It's amazing. Sometimes people get digital picture frames and they load like 12 photos and then those just rotate and it gets old. But the fact that you can continue adding photos, like it becomes much more delightful. It's like a surprise that, they're in their kitchen and they look over and here's a new picture that they haven't seen. With Aura, you get unlimited free photos and videos. You just have to download the Aura app and connect it to Wi-Fi. You can preload photos before it ships. So like, let's say you're getting it for someone and you're not going to be there to load photos when they open it up. You can actually preload the photos before it arrives to them. You can also personalize it with a message before it arrives. And then you can share photos and videos effortlessly, straight from your phone all year long. Every frame also comes packaged in a premium gift box. It's quite nice. I've seen it with no price tag. For a limited time, you can visit auraframes.com and get $45 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code CULTURE at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code CULTURE. This exclusive Black Friday Cyber Monday deal is their best of the year, so order now before it ends. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. The Culture Study podcast is brought to you by bookshop.org. Here at Culture Study, we love bookshop.org. All of the links that we use in all of the newsletters, whenever we're linking out in the podcast, it always goes to bookshop.org because where you shop for your books matters. When you purchase from bookshop.org, you're supporting more than 2,400 local independent bookstores across the country, ensuring they'll continue to foster culture, curiosity, and a love for reading for generations to come. Sometimes, in my case, I can get into town and I can get books from my bookstore. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And sometimes you need to order something online. Since 2020, bookshop.org has raised over $40 million for local bookstores. They're unapologetically anti-Amazon, and they believe local bookstores are essential community hubs that foster culture, curiosity, and love of reading. They're committed to helping them survive and thrive. Right now, you can use code CULTURE to get 10% off your next order at bookshop.org. Melody, what are you reading right now?
Ooh, I am currently reading, I started it last night, a historical romance called A Caribbean Heiress in Paris. And it's so delightful because it's about a woman from the Dominican Republic who is in Paris trying to sell casks of her family's rum. And of course, her inheritance hangs on her success. And then there's a handsome Scottish man who is like the son of a duke, and they just kissed for the first time. So it's the exact escape I need.
A Caribbean Heiress in Paris?
Yep, by Adriana Herrera.
Amazing. Okay, I am about to start Heart the Lover by Lily King. I'm
I've
a
heard that's
Lily King
wonderful.
stan. Nothing quite measures up to Euphoria by Lily King, but I am excited to let this one try. So that is next on my TBR list. Again, that's bookshop.org, code CULTURE to get 10% off your next order at bookshop.org. Okay, next question. This comes from Carolyn.
In my experience, hiring someone to do bookkeeping, promotion, social media, and other admin tasks would be really ideal. The administrative work drains time, energy, and passion that we need to do our actual artistic and creative work. However, paying someone to do that admin work would cut into profits so much that it seems like it might not be possible to earn enough to make the artistic part of the work financially sustainable. It just really seems like we have to do all the admin labor ourselves. I would love to hear thoughts on and tips to manage this tension. Thank you so much.
Well, okay. So I actually hire out very little.
Yeah.
I hire out bookkeeping because if I didn't pay Crystal, my bookkeeper, to do my bookkeeping, I would be overdrawn all the time. And also it would make tax time terrible. I also have a tax accountant now who I've put off for years and years and years because I'm bad at filing quarterly taxes and I always feel like I'm going to be judged for that. And I mean, the truth is I went in with a profit and loss sheet that Crystal had prepared. And he was like, "You're so organized." I'm like, "But it's September 28th and we're just now working on my taxes." So I fulfill orders. I have a shop and where there have been years when I've done 6 figures in sales. And I am mostly the person fulfilling those orders.
Yeah.
Because I don't have consistent enough sales, because I don't have consistent enough product development in order to merit having a full-time or even a part-time person.
Yeah.
So my advice is always to like hire out for the thing you hate the most.
Yes.
And the thing I hate the most is the bookkeeping. I don't mind the admin. Booking, I don't have to do a lot with. I do have an attorney for all of my licensing stuff.
Yeah.
Who is worth the money. And quite honestly, if I am offered a licensing project that will cost me more in attorney's fees to review the contract, to review and negotiate, I just don't take the project on.
Yep.
And I will tell them up front, I know, I can't do this, because even for that amount of money, that's like 2 hours of my attorney's time.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to make anything.
That
So, no.
for me was really difficult to transition into like looking at what was offered for, say, like a speaking gig that I otherwise maybe would want to do, but then thinking about how long it would take me to get there, how much working time that I wouldn't be able, like how much I wouldn't be able to work, how much it would take off of me in terms of like extra labor, just tiredness, right? And then say no for that reason. But I was so precarious for so long that I always was like, oh, they want to give me $1,000? That's so much money, right? But it's not when you calculate those other things. But it was like, to get to that point, it takes, I think, a learning curve. Melody and I were actually talking about, do we maybe want to like hire someone to handle some of like the nitty gritty stuff? And Melody said something that I think about all the time is that like, I don't want to train someone. Like it would be so much work to train someone. Like I just want 120% of me.
Right.
Yes.
Or you can find that person who needs very little training, but that will cost you, right?
Yes.
Like that is, again, that is consulting prices. That is
Yeah.
a premium and not like a recent college grad who just needs some work on the side.
Totally. And so both of us like find ourselves in this position of like, do we want to do that work to either find or pay someone to do that 0.2%, or do we just want to like just freaking do it, like just be better at organizing our time or something like that? Melody, what's your thinking on this as also a small business owner?
Yeah, I tried last year to hire someone to take over some of my admin, and it just like didn't happen. I just like didn't have time to really explain what I needed. And then all of these things that are in my admin process that only make sense in my head. And if one of those things were to disappear, I wouldn't know how to do the other things. And so now I just try to block off every Monday morning is admin time.
Yeah.
And so rather than doing it piecemeal, which then I feel like it just expands and fills the whole day.
Totally.
So I try to just limit everything to a certain time block. But then I did, like Jen, I just got an accountant that is changing my life, because she just every quarter emails and says, this is how much you need to pay the IRS.
I
and
know,
I'm like,
that's what my
what? I don't even have to get out my calculator app. So
Nope.
that would be the thing. And I'm like very much looking forward. They converted me to an S Corp, which is like the best thing that's happened to me this year. So I'm just really looking forward to not having to think about any of that. But all of the rest of it, I'm like last year I was like too busy to train anyone, and this year I'm kind of like I don't have enough that I need to train someone. So I agree with Jen, hire out the thing you hate the most if you can.
Yeah, or that gives you the most anxiety. And I think for all of us, like having an accountant who knows their shit like makes you less terrified of the IRS.
Yeah.
And I will also say I was audited last year because of all the small payments coming from Stripe payments, from subscriptions. And so the state of Washington audited me. And when I first got the notification, like I had this incredible fear response of like, they're going to take everything or something. I don't know where that came from. But I guess just like years of people saying the IRS is scary and being audited is scary. But my accountant took care of everything. It was totally fine. The state actually owed me money. And I think like having that assurance that your accountant will take care of it. Shout out to Siobhan, my accountant, is really lovely.
Oh, can I say one more thing that I was just
Yeah.
thinking about?
Yeah.
I think I understand this trade-off of like, I can't cut into my profits
Yeah.
by hiring out this work. But if you hire out that work, you're going to have more time and more creative energy
Yeah.
to make a little bit more money. So that's also something that has changed a lot for me in the last few years of like hiring out, even subcontracting some smaller projects to give me time to do better work on the bigger projects.
Well, and that's the thing is it's not necessarily, oh, I'm going to have more time to like heads down write a piece or you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's extra time that will allow you to recover to do better creative work.
Exactly.
Okay, next question is from Paige, and Melody's going to read it.
I just started my second year of college, but I've been running a small crochet business since I was in 10th grade. I've never wanted to turn my business into my full-time job. It's very much a side hustle, and I like it that way. However, I still would love to build a little bit more of a following, but I feel like the amount of brain space it takes to be successful on social media or online is consuming. Is it even possible to run a small business with regular sales without being an Instagram or TikTok influencer as well these days?
Whew. What is
It
your thinking on
is.
it? Is.
I want to remind you that you want to do as a page. This is not quite a full-time job. It's a little bit more than a hobby. Don't feel like you have to do all the social media stuff. I think,
Yeah.
there are other ways to do it. Now, again, I want to say I'm old. I'm 50. I'm not that old. But I've been around, like in tech years, I'm old. I've been
Yes.
around long enough that you didn't do sales online. Like the bulk of my sales were at craft fairs, which
Yes.
still exist and that you can still go to and which are really fun in many ways because you actually get to talk to people.
Yep.
And that is actually where I built my newsletter list. And so I actually sell probably about 60% of my sales come through my newsletter and the remaining 40 are through social media. But those other 40 are also, a lot of them are also newsletter subscribers who just need to see it once more on Instagram and click
Yep.
and buy.
Yep.
That old adage where it's easier to retain a customer than it is to get a new one, I think is really true here too. So if you don't want to spend all your time on social media, you don't have to. You can do craft fair. You can just start a newsletter. There are a number of platforms that you can use that don't charge you until you have a certain number of subscribers.
I love that you bring up the craft fair. We have like a Saturday market on the island and it's just people who come with their stuff. And like, first of all, it also like just feels really good to be talking to people about your artwork. And even if they don't buy, like to answer questions, I don't know, it's a real community thing for sure.
And especially if you're a college student, people get really excited to meet students and talk to them and ask them about their lives and want to support them.
Yeah.
So that could be an outlet for you. I mean, I would much rather do that than spend, again, 6.5 hours filming a video of you crocheting. Like, is it really going to drive sales or is it just going to get more people to follow you and ask you questions about what it is you're doing and how they can do that? So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The sales are gonna be from people who are not on Instagram most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so next question is about admin. I love this question. It comes from Erica.
When starting a small business, how do you pay yourself? Paying myself as I get paid made sense at first because I was living hand to mouth. I'm only a stage or maybe half a stage past that point. Most self-employed financial advice amounts to bring in more money as a starting point, but what to do while that hustle is ongoing?
So how have you dealt with this idea of how much do you pay yourself over the years, Jen?
So honestly, I tell people, and I did this myself, is I had a day job. I was an HR consultant for 6 to 8 years, and I ramp up my hours or ramp them down depending on the client, depending on my projects, my art projects. That is how I kept the income really steady until I knew that I could afford to pay myself my basic living expenses every month out of my art sales. As successful as I was, and I had all these licensing projects, I had a book deal. I think it was almost on my second book deal. I was still working anywhere from 16 to 32 hours a week.
Yeah.
making consulting money, which was good money. It was really hard to give that up.
Mm-hmm.
But the trade-off was that I got to do what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I tell people when they're starting out not to quit their day job, or to find something that will pay you regularly.
Yeah.
Like I would actually love to get a job at a cafe where I could work 24 hours and get paid like X amount of money and maybe be eligible for health insurance at some point. If there were a Costco close by, I'd be knocking on the door to work at Costco.
Costco's such a good job.
I know, right?
Greeter, Jen. You would be such a good greeter.
But now I have a base amount that I have to pay myself every month.
Yeah.
Because I have like a mortgage now. And I qualified for that mortgage because I had 3 or 4 really, really good years of a lot of income. And I looked really great to banks for for a flash in a pan.
Yeah, just do that. Do that to get the loan approval. Yes.
Yeah. Shout out to all the people who recommended my mortgage broker who was used to working with artists and would just look at your income and be like, I get it. He's from New Jersey. He's like, I get it. You're an artist.
That's great. Great.
But, and now again, I have been kind of not working for the last 18 months to 2 years just because of some family stuff I've been managing. And my God, I don't know how, like I'm a caregiver to my 2 elderly parents. And that is a lot, even though I'm doing it across country and they live in memory care. But I have not been able to work for the last couple of years. And I'm ramping back up now. Got some collections coming out that I'm really excited about. But I also do have that part-time consulting gig working for a fashion company, which I also really love because I get to work with a successful small business that's just like making it happen.
Totally.
And it's really fun to see that.
And it flexes a different muscle. Like that is what I always tell people is like something that does something different for you. Like part of what I love about doing the small business of dahlias with my friends is that it is a totally different muscle than anything that I'm doing with this podcast or with writing. Like it's really useful for me in that capacity. And also I know journalists always say, like when they start going freelance, they get like a job writing ad copy, right? And that's like their big client. And then they can do other copy that's more of the stuff that they want to do. I think there is a real move away from what was the dominant understanding when I was in my 20s, which is like, just do the thing that you love. Like, don't think about the money. Just do the thing. And now it's much more like, get a job that's going to pay the bills and then figure out how to do the thing that you love as well. And it doesn't have to be, it can be for pay, but it doesn't have to be for pay. It can also just be a thing that you love.
And I also think as a creative person who makes a living doing creative work, your work can become really stunted and not very interesting when you're doing it to make the money up front, right?
Yeah.
Because then your work becomes profit driven rather than creatively driven.
Yeah.
And that was a real gift when I was an HR consultant, was that I was able to just make the kinds of work that I wanted to make and not have to worry about whether or not it was going to support me. And I was doing a lot of, I was actually laying the groundwork for all of the stuff that I'm doing now. Like one project I set up for myself one year ended up becoming the basis for my first book. Right? And that was also how I ended up getting a licensing gig. So I was printing fabric and a commercial fabric company came and asked me if I would be interested in licensing my fabric designs that I had been printing myself. Of course I would. But there were a lot of opportunities that came out of being able to do the work that I really was excited about rather than the work that was going to pay the bills.
Melody, you wanted to add something about how you actually decide on a number to extract from your bank account to pay yourself. Can you say something about that?
Yeah, highly recommend getting a separate business bank account and keeping everything really clean. So do all of your invoicing to your business bank account. And then I have within my business account, checking and savings. And every time that I get paid, I hold back 30% that is like taxes and also just like if anything else comes up. And then I was just like transferring the rest of it every single time I got paid. But now that I'm an S Corp, I have to actually pay myself a salary. So that is on like a set schedule. So that is taking a little bit of getting used to. But I think it's totally fine to keep paying yourself as you're getting paid, as long as you're keeping track of taxes.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Jen?
Yeah, I do pay myself a set amount monthly, and that is my mortgage. So I pay myself right now. I have to make at least enough to pay my mortgage. I have other sources of income coming in from consulting and a couple of other things. And when I get, so royalties are often paid quarterly or annually, and I will get a big chunk of money, and that all goes into the savings, and then I'll draw that down to pay my mortgage each month.
Smart.
Until it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then hopefully not something else comes in.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense too. Yeah.
I do also like when you start getting paid a little bit more, making a little bit more money, kind of tricking yourself into saving money. So I'll transfer, like I have a totally separate high yield savings account that I transfer money to from my business account. And then in my bookkeeping, I just mark it like owner's draw or whatever.
Yep.
But then I just never even know that it existed. And it goes, and then I like check on the balance one day and I'm really surprised because it just never lived in my personal checking account to begin with.
Yeah. And then it's there in the high yield savings account accruing interest. So that's great.
So that's my vacation fund. That's how I do that.
And depending on your age, which I just learned from my accountant because I'm getting close to that 59 and a half where you can start taking money out of your IRA. He was like, you just treat that as a savings account at your age. I'm like, thanks, buddy. But he actually told me, he said, if you put $4,000 into your IRA, you'll save an extra $1,000 on taxes. And I was like, that is a good deal.
Yeah,
So
no.
let me just
So
look for that.
if your accountant, if you are a small business owner and your accountant isn't offering you those ways of saving on your taxes by putting money into your IRA, talk to them about it because it's a really important way for you to set aside money and also pay less in a pretty steep tax rate that we pay as freelancers. So
yeah. I'm getting ready to set up like a solo K and all of that.
I have a solo K.
Because what is retirement? I wouldn't know yet.
I gotta work till I die.
Pretty much. Until the earth dies is the plan.
Listen, I'm planning on being like Mary Englebright or Lisa Frank and just be coasting on royalties until I die.
That's so smart.
So this decade is the time that I have to make it happen.
Yes. Just a few more years of hustle and you are set.
Exactly. Mary, if you're listening to this, don't at me.
People are like, oh, can't you live on your book royalties? And I'm like, oh, the $200 I get every 6 months? Yeah, totally.
At least you're getting a payout.
I know. I got paid so little for the original book. Today's episode is sponsored by Article. All right, if you listen to this podcast, you know that Melody and I authentically, genuinely love Article. We have loved it for a very long time. We love everything that we have purchased from there. And right now, we are very excited about this new collection, specifically about this bed. It's called the Cassie King bed, and Melody flagged it for me because it's like long, it's extended, and then it has built-in nightstands. Truly my dream. There's also like a matching bench. I have a very similar bench to this from Article, and it comes with like a cushion on top, which the amazing thing about this cushion is that it is washable because Steve loves to sit on this bench and look out the window. And Steve has white hair. Steve is my dog. And Steve has white hair. So I have to wash it from time to time. And it's just perfect. The other things we love about Article is that it lasts a really long time. The craftsmanship is top notch. This is not the sort of furniture that you buy and then within 2 years you're like, oh my gosh, I have to get new stuff. They have fast, affordable shipping and assembly, and they also have support when you need it. And all Article furniture comes with a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. You can shop with confidence knowing that if you're not completely in love with your new furniture, you can easily return it. This peace of mind ensures you can invest in your home without hesitation. So if you're in the market for a beautiful bed with built-in nightstand, a new dining room table or bed, new chairs, new table lamps, head over to article.com. And thank you, Article, for sponsoring this episode. The Culture Study podcast is sponsored by Wild Alaskan Company. During the summer, I can get fresh caught fish pretty easily where I live. People fish right on my island. They just text me and then I show up the next day and you're like, oh, here's a whole freaking salmon. That is not something that can happen all year long. So if you want wild caught, perfectly portioned, nutrient dense seafood anytime that you want it, the solution is Wild Alaskan Company. I just love how it comes in actual packages that when I defrost them, it's enough for, like, if I'm not that hungry, me and a partner, me and someone else, or just for me. It tastes so fresh, and I love all the different variations. And there are 3 types of boxes you can get. You can get the wild combo box, which has coho salmon, sockeye salmon, Pacific halibut, Pacific cod, wild Alaska pollock. You can get just the wild salmon box, which has coho salmon and sockeye salmon. I love having these for nights when you're like, I haven't planned anything. Let's just have some salmon and whatever vegetable is in our fridge. And then there's also the wild whitefish box, which has Pacific cod, halibut, sablefish, rockfish, and wild Alaska pollock. Because of where I live, I know what good fish tastes like, and this is really good fish. It's 100% wild caught, never farmed. This means there's no antibiotics, GMOs, or additives, just clean, real fish that support healthy oceans and fishing communities. Wild Alaskan fish is frozen off the boat to lock in taste, texture, and nutrients like omega-3s, and it is sustainably sourced. This is really important. It's wild caught from Alaska, and every order supports sustainable harvesting practices. Your membership delivers flexible shipments, expert tips, and truly feel-good seafood. Not all fish are the same. Get seafood you can trust. Go to wildalaskan.com/culture for $35 off your first box of premium wild-caught seafood. That's wildalaskan.com/culture for $35 off your first order. Thanks to Wild Alaskan Company for sponsoring this episode. This is such a good tee up for our next question from Natalie, so I'm just going to segue into that.
I'm a hobbyist hand dyer and I sell items I make out of that hand-dyed fabric on Etsy. How do you balance your own taste with that of, quote, market appeal? Is there a case to be made that I should just make what I think is beautiful and hang the potential lost sales? Or is creating outside my own preferences a way of pushing my boundaries and maybe also attracting other customers? When I make something outside of my own preferences, I feel like I can't even tell if it's actually good.
Isn't that an interesting question? I love it. What do you think about this?
Okay, so first of all, Natalie is a hobbyist.
Yeah.
So if it's a hobby, you're doing it because you love it and not because you're trying to make money out of it. So I would actually say, like, do the thing you want to do. This is really
make
like,
the stuff that you think is cool.
Right. But from like a really pragmatic point of view, when I first started doing this 15 years ago, trends moved a lot more slowly.
Yeah.
Right. They move really quickly right now. In fact, I was looking at something on an Instagram reel where a woman was showing her house now and then. And like then was 3 years ago. It was millennial gray. And now it's like granny chic. Like that was a 3-year period of time.
Then 3
right
years ago.
Then. Well, you know, granted, she was probably 27 and now she's 30. But still. Don't chase trends. Like if you are doing this as an artist, as a creative person for a living, it is really important to develop your own style, your own voice, your own point of view, because that's what's going to carry you for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're constantly chasing trends and you're always going to be a little bit behind. If you are doing things from your own point of view, you might be a little bit behind, but often you will be ahead of the game. Because I think as an artist, as a person who's truly creative, you are putting something out there that often isn't out there yet. And it just takes a little bit of time for the world to catch up with you. So the things that became part of my first fabric collection in 2018, which then got relicensed again by World Market for a home collection in 2021, 2022, were prints that I made during one of my very first projects, like self-imposed, self-inflicted projects in 2014, right? So it had this long life cycle, and I just re-released them as a fabric collection. And so build a body of work. I know hand dyeing is meticulous, and it takes a lot of time. There is a market for it, but you're just going to kind of have to stick with it and do the things that you really want to do. and your people will find you and
Yeah.
they'll catch up with you. Also, when I try to design to trends, it falls flat all the time too because it's not honest.
Right.
It's not coming from a place of integrity. It's not coming from my own voice. Or I will try to copy a trend and then it ends up looking like my work anyway and it doesn't look like the trend, which is also
Right.
really a good starting point for
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah, totally.
Right? But do your thing. And if it's a hobby, like seriously, have fun and don't worry about the money. Hopefully you're recouping some of your expenses,
Yeah.
but that's really all you need to
No,
do.
that's like for the Dahlias, like our thing is like we want to like not lose money and like maybe make enough money to go on a fun trip at some point. Like that's the goal. And that's like
Yeah.
a lovely side hustle goal. Very different than people who are farming full time. And I love the point that like if you try to it's not going to feel honest. And I think that like you can almost feel it in your body when you're doing it. Like there's like a visceral way that you're like when she says like when I make something that's outside of my own preference, I feel like I can't tell it's actually good. It's like it scrambles the wires, right? Like your taste wires because it's not what you like. It isn't probably very good because it's not the thing. But maybe she sees like people really responding to other people making that work and wants to like have a similar response.
True, but maybe who knows if those people are actually like selling a lot of it either.
Totally.
Let's be honest.
Totally.
I mean,
Who
as
knows?
someone, I have a large social media following, and I get all these requests like, do you need help managing your marketing, your business, your finances? I'm like, I can't even pay myself right now. Why would I pay you? But I think from social media, it seems like I have a completely different life and business than probably what I do have. And
Yeah.
part of that is choice, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if the things that are popular right now are not necessarily sustaining the people who make them.
Yep. Agreed. Okay, last question. This is a philosophical one. It comes from Allison.
I'm a freelancer, or am I a small business, entrepreneur, consultant, corporation? My business is registered as a limited liability corporation. How are we supposed to label a business of one, me, so that friends and family get what we do, but we also sound awesome enough to hire? For context, I work as a ghostwriter and editor.
So how do you describe yourself now for people who ask you what you do?
Oh man. So for people who are like outside the world of what I do, I say I'm a commercial artist.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Partly because it's like generational thing. We're talking about my parents' generation, and I say commercial artists, and they're like, oh, right, somebody who makes things that sell.
Yeah.
And then we can get into a real conversation about what it means to be a commercial artist. Otherwise, if I tell people like, well, I'm an artist, we get into like, you're a painter, you're a sculptor, what do you do? And then I have to explain surface design and printmaking to them. It's a lot of work, but I will also, like I will just say all the things that I do, which is I'm a printmaker, a surface designer, a writer, and a textile artist, and we can talk about any one of those things. But that's partly because I'm not a client-facing person, right? So
Yeah.
if I were out there trying to get, like, if I were to say any of that to a potential licensee, they would understand what I'm doing. I'm speaking their language. But to people outside of that world, like, commercial artist kind of works. I also have in the past, because I do a lot of consulting work or have done a lot of consulting work, I'll just say I'm a consultant because when I say I'm a consultant, people have a general idea of what that means. They don't
Yeah.
really know, but
No.
they think that means some level of expertise.
Yeah.
And they think that means that there's a lot of money involved.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend anybody calling themselves a consultant, like
Yeah.
muddy those waters.
I run into this a lot because I always think of the conversations you have with like a hairstylist the first time that you go see them, because a hairstylist is someone who has familiarity with lots of different types of jobs, but also like has a really wide familiarity, but not often a lot of depth. Like they don't know maybe a ton about what, like if I say I'm a writer, like the question then becomes like, do you write like fantasy novels? Like like writing can mean so many things to so many people. And I often don't want to get into like all of the like, I don't want to talk about each of my 4 books. I don't want to talk about being an academic before. Like, sometimes you just don't want to talk about your job that much, but people use it as such a way to understand, like, how to interface with you. Even newsletter writer, like, that, what does that mean? Like, who what kind of newsletter? Like, what audience of newsletter? All of those things. I don't know what to say. And the other day, my partner Charlie introduced me as like the head of a media conglomerate, which is also not true, but I liked it more.
Oh my God. For years, my mom had no clue what it is that I do. Because she now thinks she has Alzheimer's, so she only remembers bits and pieces. So right now in her mind, I'm a writer, even though that was like second only to artist on the list of things she didn't want me ever to become. And I did 2 fairly large home collections for World Market a few years ago. There's no World Market close to me, and so I didn't get to see the collection in person until I went back to Los Angeles, and I was visiting my parents. So I take my mom into the store, and we still had to wear masks at this time. It was like late COVID. And so we're wearing masks, and we walk in, and I had no clue that there was going to be this huge, like 6 foot tall, more than life size portrait of me, like photo of me hanging in the store. And so we walk in, and my mom looks up and she says, "I think that's you." And then yep, that's me. I want you to see this collection that I created. So we're looking at all the collection. I'm showing her things, and the manager comes over and says, "Oh, we love this collection so much. It just came in. It's really great. It's selling so well." And I'm like, "Okay, stop." And I pulled down my mask and I said, "It's me. I'm Jen." And then they wanted their photos taken with me and my mom. And and it was really fun. And my mom was like, "Well, I want you to send me this and this and that," because I get production samples. And as we're leaving, my mom looked at me and she said, "Okay, I think you're going to be okay." I'm like, I'm in my late 40s at this point. She had finally understood what it was I was doing. And she was like, "You're going to be okay." At this point, I'd already bought a house.
Yeah, you're like, "Oh, now I'm okay, Mom." I love that. And I love World Market. So like, everything about this story comes together for me.
Dream licensing. They're like such a delight to work with.
I have so many items in my home from World Market. I think my advice to Allison, like, try out a couple things and see what seems right. Like, you could be like, I'm a writing consultant, or I'm an editing consultant, or an editorial consultant, and like, see how people respond. And if it feels like the vibe feels right to you and to them, but you can be whatever you want.
Seriously, you can mess with people and make things up too. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, totally.
What do any of us do?
I'm at the head of a media conglomerate, obviously. Melody, what do you say?
It depends on who I'm talking to and how cool I want to sound.
Yeah, totally.
If it really doesn't matter and I'm just trying to explain why I'm free at like 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, I'm like, "Oh, I'm a freelancer." But if
that's interesting. Just say that.
Yeah.
Just a freelancer.
Yeah, because then there aren't really a ton of follow-up questions.
Yeah.
And I guess I also just don't want to seem like a kept woman, but that's a different conversation. But then if I'm having like a serious conversation with somebody and they're like, "Well, what do you do for work?" I'm like, "Oh, I have my own podcast production company." And they're like, "Wow. Oh, wow." And then I'm like, feel like I'm faking it a little bit. But when I decided to like become an LLC and make it official, I was telling my therapist that I felt like I was such a poser and like everybody's going to think that I'm so lame for doing this. And like, is it embarrassing to be like, "Oh, I'm a business owner?" And she was like, "Let me tell you something. My in-laws are as proud of me as they are of my sister-in-law's MLM. Yeah. People don't care. They're really not thinking about it that hard."
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
that's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Jen, can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on now? Because you said you were putting stuff into production again.
Yes. So my 5th or maybe 6th fabric collection is coming out. That's always in the works for like over a year.
Yeah.
So it takes, I think, 16 months from final sketches to ship date. And I've also been, and I haven't announced this fully on social media yet, but I've been working on a home collection. So licensing dried up for reasons, partly having to do with the economy, partly having to do with tariffs, meaning there is not as much money to pay artists to do the work, or pay us what we used to be paid. So I decided that since I have the know-how and the connections, I was going to design some work and have it made. And hopefully that will be here in time for Black Friday, which I don't believe in, but so we'll say
Small
Cyber
business.
Monday.
You know what we'll do is we'll put this all over in the holiday guide too.
Okay.
That will be
Hopefully
amazing.
I'll have it by then.
Well, no,
I'm
but like
really
we put it
excited.
out like whenever yours comes out, we're gonna put it all over the place.
Yay!
That is amazing, and I hope that every listener to this show is not like an Instagram viewer and more like a small craft fair buyer and actually makes the purchase. It's really beautiful. Like, I mean, there's many reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, but one of them is that I absolutely love your work. So it's a real privilege.
Thank you.
So where can people find you on the internet if they want to find more?
So I have a website. It's Jen Hewitt, and that's Hewitt with 2 E's, no I's, .com. And I'm also on social media at Jen Hewitt, and it's JEN, 1N, HEWETT. And I send out a newsletter that people seem to love once or twice a month, depending on how much I have to sell.
Amazing. I love it. That's a great way to end. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Anne and Melody.
Thanks for listening to the Culture Study Podcast. Today, paid subscribers got a bonus segment all about my favorite day trips in the Pacific Northwest, and last week we talked about how to throw more casual dinner parties. So if you want to support the show and always get that kind of bonus content, head to patreon.com/culturestudy. It's just $5 a month or $50 a year, and you'll get ad-free episodes, an exclusive advice time segment, and weekly discussion threads for each episode. If you have an idea for a future episode or want to ask a question about the culture that surrounds you or submit a question for our subscriber-only advice time segment, go to our Google form at tinyurl.com/culturestudypod or check the show notes for a link. The Culture Study Podcast is produced by me, Anne Helen Peterson, and Melody Rowell. Our music is by Poddington Bear. You can find me on Instagram at Anne Helen Peterson, Melody at Melodious47, and the show at Culture Study Pod.